Greetings, lovers of mysticism and the unknown. Welcome to the Incredible Stories channel. We are explorers of the unexplainable and unbelievable. Today, I will tell you an interesting story. Brew up some goodies and enjoy. To date, there are more than 5 million UFO sightings, and thousands of pages of previously classified documents have been declassified, confirming the reality of this phenomenon. But despite the fact that UFOs visit our planet quite often, most aspects related to them remain a mystery to people. Ufologist Leonard Stringfield received a document from a source. The intermediary who transmitted the document, and whom Stringfield knows well, preferred anonymity for fear of persecution by government services. The document, dated July 16, 1947, is a preliminary report on the inspection of the crashed flying disc. An accompanying letter to the report is signed by the commander of the U.S. Air Force in 1947, General Nathan Twining. Preliminary report on UFO incidents in 1947. As stated in the Presidential Directive of July 9, 1947, a preliminary investigation of the recovered flying disc and debris of a possible second disc was conducted at Army headquarters of the 8th Air Force at Fort Worth, Texas. Author's note: information for this report was provided by the headquarters technical staff of the 2nd and the aviation laboratory of the 3rd Technical Division. Additional data were provided by the research staff of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the Air Force Scientific Advisory Division, headed by Dr. Theodore von Karman. Further analysis was conducted by the Division of Science and Development. Regarding the object under study, there is a collective opinion that the aircraft picked up by Army and Air Force units are not of American manufacture for the following reasons. The round, disc-shaped platform design does not resemble any of the designs currently in development of any design. The absence of any external propulsion system, ventilation, and exhaust ducts, as well as propellers or jet engine confirms this opinion. German scientists at Fort Bliss and White Sands Brewing Grounds cannot identify these objects as secret German weapons. True, the possibility remains that a similar device was developed by the Russians. The absence of any markings, identification numbers, or instructions in Cyrillic has caused most to seriously doubt that these objects are Russian-made. Examination of the interior of the apparatus revealed the presence of a compartment that looked like an atomic engine. At least that was the opinion expressed by Dr. Oppenheimer and Dr. von Karman. There is a possibility that part of the apparatus itself constitutes a propulsion system, taking the function of a heat exchanger to the reactor and acting as an energy store. This process is not like the release of energy in our atomic bombs. How do eyewitnesses describe UFOs? 1. A donut-shaped tube, approximately 35 feet, 10.7 meters, made of plastic-like material, surrounds the central core. The tube appeared to be filled with a purified substance, possibly heavy water. A massive rod in the center of the tube is immersed in a coil of copper alloy-like material running through the tube body. This could be a reactor control mechanism or a storage battery. No moving parts were found in the areas studied. 2. The primary energy for the reactor appears to be the activation of an electrical potential, although at present, this is only a guess. Only it remains unknown how a heavy water-based reactor functions in such an environment. 3. A spherical turret, approximately 10 feet 3 meters, in diameter, was found underneath the power plant. This turret is equipped with a number of devices with unusual characteristics unknown to any of our engineers. Inside the turret are 4 circular cavities covered with an unknown smooth material. These cavities are symmetrical to each other, but appear to be movable. True, it is unknown how. This movement is related to the dome-shaped room above the propulsion system. The main propulsion system is believed to be a bladeless turbine, similar to current developments in the Magnet project. Dr. August Steinhoff, head of research, Dr. Werner von Braun, and Dr. Theodore von Karman put forward the following theory. Flying through the atmosphere, the aircraft somehow absorbs hydrogen and generates an atomic fusion reaction by induction. In order for the vehicle to move, the air around it must be ionized, bound to the surrounding airfoil. The flying machine can presumably have an unlimited range and speed of flight. This may explain the reported absence of any noise. The living compartment is located in the upper part. It is round, with a dome top. The absence of a canopy, observation windows, illuminators, or any other optical projections supports the view that the vehicle is controlled remotely. 1. A semicircular screen, possibly a television screen. 2. The living quarters have been sealed with a special curing compound. 3. There are no traces of welding, riveting, or soldering. 4. The components of the apparatus are of perfect shape and quality. In conclusion, it remains to be noted that in this document of particular interest is a rather detailed description of the internal construction of the flying saucer and the principle of operation of the flying apparatus. If the document is authentic, the information it contains could be a significant contribution to ufology and to the formation of knowledge about the technical aspects of UFOs. How do UFOs affect earthly technology? A wide variety of UFO effects on various types of machinery have been documented, from the harmless rotation of compass arrows to the death of aircraft. The force fields created by these objects can temporarily disrupt electrical and mechanical clocks, radio facilities, weapons control systems, and even the power supply of entire cities, cause the stopping of internal combustion engines, and finally, to attract heavy objects to the objects. UFOs on compasses of ships and planes was expressed in the fact that their arrows sometimes followed objects, as if attracted by them or continuously rotated. Known a number of cases in the US and France, when the appearance of UFO caused malfunction or stopped the electric and mechanical watches. In 1958, in Kazakhstan, a large disc passed over a group of students sitting around a campfire at a height of 3 meters, after which everyone stopped their watches. A similar case happened in 1978 with the passengers of the Shota Rustaveli ship in the Atlantic. Very often the appearance of UFOs led to the cessation of operation of radio facilities, which were working again as soon as the UFO flew away. The following examples may serve to confirm this. In November 1957, a UFO hovered 2 to 3 km above the town of Basketong, Canada, with a beam of light emanating from it. All shortwave receivers in the city immediately stopped working, but in some of them some signal resembling Morse code was heard. When the object disappeared, all receivers started working again. In October 1977 in our country, 260 kilometers from Ryazan, when an unidentified ellipsoidal object approached 3 military planes, the shortwave radio communication of the planes with each other and with the ground completely stopped, and with the removal of the object was restored again. Cases of cessation of radio communication with the appearance of UFOs were also observed in 1954 in Marion, Virginia, in 1957 in Arangua, Brazil, and in 1977 near the mothership Volga in the Barents Sea. The newspaper Moscow News, 1978-33, with reference to a number of foreign agencies, reported that in November 1978, during the landing of a disc-shaped UFO with a transparent dome, 40 kilometers from the capital of Kuwait, has been put out of operation not only all the radio, but also telephone communications capital of Kuwait with the outside world. In 1957 in Ringwood, Illinois, in 1959 in Salisbury, Caroline, and in 1963 in Victoria, Australia, television sets malfunctioned with the appearance of UFOs. In other cases during the flight of UFOs in the operation of radio and television stations have been noted intense interference. Characteristically, in the 1968 case of Tismana, Romania, strong interference occurred only in the long wave band, while on medium waves it was much smaller, and on short waves it was not felt at all. There have also been recorded cases of temporary cessation of operation of radar stations during the appearance of UFOs, as was the case in 1950 on 2 American aircraft in Korea, in 1973 in Columbia, Missouri, and in 1977 on our trawler Vasily Kiselev in the Atlantic. In 1957, during a flight of 3 disc-shaped UFO over the Brazilian city of Mochi Mirim, complete targeting in the city observed only under the flight path of objects, and on both sides of it faded with distance. Cases where the appearance of UFOs led only to a decrease in voltage in the network, also recorded in 1958 in Rome, in 1969 in a district of Tallinn, Maninka, and in 1961 in the town of Leckville, Massachusetts, and in 1973 in La Spezia, Italy. And during the blackout in Rome, an engineer plugged in a meter and found that there was voltage, but not enough to light the bulbs. The following example shows that UFOs can have a simultaneous effect on different power sources. How are UFOs disguised? Many eyewitnesses of UFOs tell about such an amazing property of unidentified objects as invisibility. They appear out of nowhere or disappear. In June 1966, near a farm in Aveyron, France, 3 fireballs appeared, flying across the field towards the farm. One of these orbs hovered 15 meters from the house and hung motionless for 3 minutes, then suddenly disappeared and reappeared a few hundred meters from the house a few seconds later. Such instantaneous movements continued for some time. The press cites a case near the town of Mulhouse, France, where 3 young men saw an orange-red ball of 50 meters in diameter come down on the ground in a zigzag trajectory and land in a clearing 300 meters from the witnesses. But when they went to the balloon, it immediately disappeared. In our country in July 1979 on the road from Zlatoust to Beloretsk, 3 eyewitnesses who were riding in the car saw approaching from behind a fireball the size of a 2-story house. They looked at it for 2 minutes, then the ball suddenly disappeared, and after 2 to 3 minutes reappeared, but already in front of the car, and hovered motionless for a while, then also suddenly disappeared. At first, attempts were made to explain these properties of UFOs by peculiarities of their kinematics. It was assumed that these objects suddenly disappear from the field of view due to the fact that they rush off the ground with great speed, and their sudden appearance was explained by the arrival with the same lightning speed and an instantaneous stop. The following example to some extent confirms the possibility of such an assumption. In June 1968, in Dax, France, the couple J, who were driving at 110 km/h, suddenly saw a dark hemispherical object with a red blinking light in front of them in the middle of the road. They braked sharply. A collision seemed inevitable, and as if they drove through the object without feeling anything. Apparently, at the very last moment, it really took off at lightning speed and disappeared. Its footprints, later found at the landing site, confirmed that it was not a mirage. Proof of the ability of UFOs to become invisible to the human eye is also the following cases where, after the appearance of photographs of clear sky or clear terrain, UFOs were found on them. In August 1979, operator Pipars from Riga was on a fishing boat in Greenland Sea, and at night he took 12 color photos of the night sky and dark sea with lights of ships. He was surprised when, after developing 4 of the 12 pictures, he saw an elongated bright glow which took up about half the sky on the frame and gradually changed its shape. In September 1983, near Ipetri, Rizkov from Rostov-on-Don took 5 photos of the surrounding area, and when he developed the film, he was surprised to see 3 images of a large dark object hovering above the top of the mountain and flying over the highway. How do UFOs affect people? In August 1979, the Polish fishing boat Hel 127 was at sea near the Hel Peninsula. Suddenly, an unknown fiery red pulsating object the size of a soccer ball appeared over the surface of the sea. The skipper of the boat, Schomburg, felt a strange stupor, pain in his chest, and began to lose his vision. At the same time, he began to feel a fear such as he had never known even in the strongest storm. Helmsman Elvart also became numb and even threw the wheel, and the other 2 crew members, Figursky and Bona, stepped onto the bridge and felt the most severe pain in their temples. The strange orb accompanied the boat for about 20 minutes, then retreated, but for a long time, Schomburg did not release a feeling of incomprehensible fear. Experiments in different countries have shown that when a person gets into an electromagnetic field of a certain very high frequency, he begins to feel a sense of fear and depression. There are also known cases where UFOs or beams emanating from them have led witnesses to a state of great excitement. Sometimes close encounters with UFOs have resulted in more severe consequences for the witnesses due to severe nervous shock, causing general mental disturbance. In February 1975, a resident of the French city of Réunion-Sévérin, after a brief stay in the vicinity of a strange object hovering at low altitude, similar to a hat, temporarily lost the power of speech and then his eyesight. It was not until a week later, when his condition had somewhat improved and his speech had recovered, that Saverin was able to tell the gendarmes what had happened to him. Sometimes UFOs seem to influence the subconscious mind of eyewitnesses, and this influence continues for some time after the encounter with UFOs. This is expressed in the fact that in some cases, people who were in the immediate vicinity of these objects remember everything that happened to them before the meeting with UFOs and after it, but what happened during the meeting itself completely escapes from their memory. Sometimes this gap can be restored by so-called regressive hypnosis. Foreign sources cite a number of examples of people subjected to regressive hypnosis remembering everything that happened to them during the encounter with UFOs. However, experts in hypnosis point out that there is no certainty that the picture reconstructed by the hypnotized corresponds to the truth and is not induced by their subconscious. In addition to this, there are also known cases in which even with the aid of hypnosis, the eyewitnesses were unable to remember what happened to them while their consciousness was disconnected. And in some cases, witnesses themselves without any hypnosis gradually recalled all the circumstances of their encounter with UFOs. And what are the types of UFOs, and what is their appearance? A comprehensive study of the properties of the behavior and size of UFOs, regardless of their shape, allows us to conditionally divide them into four main types. First, very small objects, which are balls or discs of diameter 20 to 100 cm, which fly at low altitudes, sometimes flying out of objects of larger size and return to them. A well-known case occurred in October 1948 near Fargo Air Force Base, North Dakota, when pilot Horman unsuccessfully pursued a round glowing object 30 centimeters in diameter, which very skillfully maneuvered to evade the chase, and sometimes itself rapidly moved on the plane, forcing Horman to evade collision. Second, small UFOs, which are egg-shaped and disc-shaped and 2 to 3 meters in diameter. They usually fly at low altitudes and most often make landings. Small UFOs have also been seen repeatedly separating from and returning to major objects. Third, major UFOs, most often discs 9 to 40 m in diameter, with a central height of 1/5 to 1/10 of their diameter. Major UFOs make independent flights in any layers of the atmosphere and sometimes land. Objects of smaller size may separate from them. Fourth, large UFOs, usually in the shape of cigars or cylinders 100 to 800 or more meters long. They appear mainly in the upper atmosphere, do not perform complex maneuvers, and sometimes hover at high altitudes. Cases of them landing on the ground have not been recorded, but it has been repeatedly observed that small objects separated from them. There is a suggestion that large UFOs can fly in space. Such an object was observed during a test flight of the French aircraft Concorde at an altitude of 17,000 meters over the Republic of Chad during a solar eclipse of June 30, 1973. The crew and a group of scientists on board the aircraft shot a film and made some color pictures of a luminous mushroom cap-shaped object 200 meters in diameter and 80 meters high, which was following an intersecting course. At the same time, the contours of the object were indistinct, as it was apparently surrounded by an ionized plasma cloud. Let's tell the story of the eyewitnesses. In February 1963, in Victoria, Australia, an 8 meters diameter disc with an antenna-like rod hovered 300 meters above a tree. In July 1978, the crew of the Yargora, a ship sailing in the Mediterranean Sea, observed a spherical object flying over North Africa, with 3 antenna-like structures visible in the lower part. There were also recorded cases where these rods were moving or rotating. Further, we will talk about 2 such examples. In August 1976, the Moskovit AM Troitsky and 6 other witnesses saw above the Pirogovskoy Reservoir a silvery metal object 8 times the size of the lunar disk, slowly moving at an altitude of several tens of meters. 2 rotating strips could be seen on its side surface. When the object was above the witnesses, a black hatch opened in its lower part, from which a thin cylinder emerged. The lower part of this cylinder began to describe circles, while the upper part remained attached to the object. In July 1978, passengers on the Sevastopol, Leningrad train near Charkov observed for several minutes as a rod with 3 brightly shining dots emerged from the top of an elliptical UFO that was hovering motionless. This rod deflected 3 times to the right and returned to its previous position. Then a rod with 1 luminous dot extended from the bottom of the UFO. Inside the lower part of the UFO, there are sometimes 3 or 4 landing legs that extend when landing and retract inside when taking off. Here are 3 examples of such observations. In November 1957, Senior Lieutenant N, returning from Stead Air Force Base, Las Vegas, saw 4 disc-shaped UFOs 15 meters in diameter, each standing on 3 landing legs in the field. When they took off, these supports retracted before his eyes. In July 1970, a young Frenchman, Ariane J, near the village of Jabrel-les-Bourdes, saw clearly how 4 metal supports, ending in rectangles, gradually retracted into the takeoff around UFO with a diameter of 6 meters. In the USSR in June 1979 in the town of Zolochev-Charkov region, witness Starchenko watched as 50 meters from him landed UFO in the shape of a tilted saucer with a number of portholes and a dome. When the object descended to a height of 5 to 6 m, 3 telescopic landing supports about 1 meter long, ending in the form of blades, protruded from its bottom. After standing on the ground for about 20 minutes, the object took off, and one could see how the supports were pulled into its body. What did you think of it? Write in the comments. Be sure to get likes, subscribe to our channel, and check out other amazing stories.